Hey guys, it's Crystal Briefs. Several days ago, my channel reached 1000 subs and I want to thank you so much for discovering and following my channel. I'd also like to thank Evatrix who recognized my channel and gave me a shout out and let everyone know my channel exists. 1000 subs were my first goal when I started and I can't thank you enough for letting me achieve this early. I'll be uploading more videos for this year, so please look forward to them. So in this video, I'm gonna guide you through how to do 208 correctly. First, let's talk about some features of 208. It's a very popular comp in War of Wonders because it can beat a statistically stronger 424 quite easily, although often requiring carpets. And it's more mistake-proof than using 055. You know, a small mistake in 055 can totally ruin your hit, but that's not the case with 208, so I'd say it's simpler to use. The problem with Cav Blast in Wonder Rallies used to be that it was sometimes hard to penetrate the opponent's ranged. 208 quite overcomes that disadvantage by putting a bit of inf that counters enemy ranged. While 208 still maintains the properties of a Cav Blast, it also acquired the ability to penetrate 424's ranged much better. So 208 can now more stably beat 424 in ranged phalanx by a significant margin. So let's get into each aspect of operating a 208. First is choosing the target. The ideal target comp is an inf-dominant 424 like 947, 1046 in ranged phalanx, but really it can deal with any 424 in ranged phalanx. If you're half champ, you might even be able to beat a Baron level account. However, the level of the opponent you can handle will drastically drop if the opponent took 208 in a ranged wedge. That's why you'd often need carpets for 208 to make sure to snipe at a 424 in ranged phalanx. If you're the statistically stronger player, you might be able to beat a 442 variant in ranged phalanx even, but it comes with a risk, which I'll touch on in the formation section. Now, how to set up the talent? There's only one way to set up the talent for 208. You want to max out the inf and cav attack, and army attack and HB, and the remaining points should be given to army defense because there's no ranged involved in 208. Next is a rather juicy part, the formation. The only formation you'll be using would be ranged wedge. There are a few reasons for this. First is that you want to keep your inf alive all the way till the end of a battle to keep doing damage to the enemy ranged. This is a requirement for a successful 208 hit. Because if your inf dies, the cav troops left behind will have a hard time beating the ranged. Any 208 that receives damage on inf can be considered a failure. So we want a formation that puts inf squads behind cav squads. Second, the cav needs to reach the enemy inf sitting behind the ranged, so you want to penetrate the ranged front. What I mean by that is let cav squads deal with only 2 ranged squads at both ends instead of all the 4 ranged squads. Ranged wedge is the only formation that achieves both of the requirements. Plus, you can effectively consume ranged buffer troops, which helps a lot with reducing the loss. One thing you need to be aware of is that your 2 cav squads at the front need to not get destroyed. I haven't looked deep into this mechanism, but if your 2 cav squads are gone, the enemy may retarget on your 208's inf, which will further make the result worse. So you need to refrain from attacking anyone who's too statistically strong without instant carpets or got too much ranged like a 442 variant to be safe. In terms of the hero comp, you can certainly use the exact same heroes that you use for Cav Blast. That includes 4 Cav Blast heroes and 1 army hero. The troop type of the army hero should ideally be Inf, but the difference it'll make with other army hero is quite small, so if you're putting the ranged army hero like the Strong Stressed of the Sea as your leader, I don't think it's worth changing your leader and let the opponent know that you're using 208. Because in 055 you must not put Inf hero, which affects the 055 mechanism, and changing to the infantry leader will let the opponent know that you're not going to be using 055. So yeah, just do Cav Blast heroes, and here you don't really need army heroes because Inf attack and Inf HP is often negligible, which I'll touch on later. And here's the free-to-play lineup. If you don't have Watcher, it's fine to use Bombing Goblin. In terms of the familiar lineup, the best lineup includes 2 Cav Pact 5 familiars, Cav Stacker and Cav Shield as the core familiars, meaning you shouldn't change those. And in the 5th slot, you can either choose Jade Worm or Griffin. I haven't actually tested which is better. They both promote different aspects of the mechanism involved in 208 winning. However, I understand from my tests and other YouTubers that Jade Worm is better than Griffin in most cases by their synergistic effect with the Cav Shield. In general, you should try to put Shield familiar with Jade Worm unless there's a good reason not to. And here's the free-to-play core familiars. Bear in mind that Pact 5 familiars and the Shield familiar are what makes it resistant to a statistically stronger 424. Without those, the level of the opponent 208 can handle will drop quite significantly. So I suggest you try an opponent with nearly equal strength first and see how your 208 does. If you don't have all the core familiars, no problem at all if you put familiars that are available to you in the optional section. Next is on your gear. Again, you can certainly use the gear you're already using for Cav Blast. Gear set specifically for 208 is not absolutely necessary. In fact, my Cav Blast and 208 has almost the same gear except for the offhand, which I changed to Champion Light in 208. With that in mind, the best gear without Champ would be this in my opinion. It's not like I've tested and confirmed this. I previously said Inf attack is often negligible, but that's not the case when the opponent has thicker ranged like 857, 866 comps. Increasing Inf attack will certainly improve your result against thick enemy ranged frontline. And any gear pieces outside are possible alternatives. And this is the best expensive gear for 208 in my opinion. I think the Firewall Plate is better than the Champion Armor, not only because of the stats but also because of the cheapness. It provides the same amount of HP as Champion, a bit less on Cav attack but a lot more on Inf attack, meaning it can better deal with the thicker ranged frontline. The Cav Champion Armor does have quite a lot of army defense, but that's most likely negligible. I prefer the Inf attack in this case. Firewall Plate is super cheap to build and max out Astrolites. You can build about 5 of them with the cost of 1 Champion Armor, which is quite ridiculous. But if money is not a problem, by all means go for the Cav Champion Armor because it's got the upkeep reduction, which is good for keeping food positive during War of Wonders. In terms of the jewels, the best jewels would be Inf, Cav Attack, and Champ Jewel. but the best dueling matters less compared to other comp. If you have the gear dueled for Cav Blast, I think that's totally fine. I think there's no need to duel specifically for 208 in most cases. Next, let's talk a bit on stats for 208. Cav attack and HP are by far the most important stats in 208. I hope everyone agrees on that. Some people might put more emphasis on Cav attack, but if you follow my channel, treating attack and HP stats equally is the way to go. HP especially enhances the effect of the Shield Familiar and Jade Worm. However, when it comes to Inf attack, it actually depends on a situation. The importance of Inf attack is proportional to the thickness of enemy ranged frontline. The thicker the enemy ranged, the more important Inf attack would be. Also, if the enemy is in ranged phalanx, higher Inf attack does mildly improve the result. You'd still win quite easily even with low Inf attack, and that's what I meant when I said Inf attack is often negligible. But higher Inf makes the casualty difference bigger. Each Inf squad is in charge of each enemy ranged squad, and the 2 Inf squads in the middle needs to attack ranged squads alone throughout the battle, and their damage is not often enough to destroy the ranged squads in time. In fact, it's common for us to see in a report that the 424 ranged is not completely destroyed. So Inf attack will improve the result in that case. When the opponent is in ranged wedge, Inf attack gets actually negligible. In this situation, 2 Inf squads are attacking 1 enemy ranged squad, so Inf attack does not really affect the time of penetration mechanism-wise. And probably the most important stat is the counter stat, especially the Inf counter stats. I think people around my level all have the counter stats maxed, so no need to address this, but it's particularly relevant for those who haven't maxed out the counter stat. If you want to get stronger in 208, please prioritize the counter stats over everything else. The next is on some variations in the comp. 208 is the most versatile one. Some rally leads do 307-ish comp by sending full Inf and asking for 208 filling. I've seen that's been used quite often in Baron videos. The advantage of 307 is that it can more easily beat 442 variants, sometimes even 992. However, it's obviously more vulnerable to ranged wedge, and it starts to get vulnerable against Cav phalanx as well, so it needs to make sure to hit a ranged phalanx. 109 is not usually a final comp. It's what's often asked to fill, since the leader would be sending full Inf to make the final comp near 208. Finally, about the battalion. This battalion is a versatile one. The final comp will be 208 by asking for 208, with a little bit enhanced Inf attack power. You can put full tier 5 for Inf, since it's not supposed to receive any damage unless you make a mistake in the formation. Also, do put some ranged buffers. Sometimes I see others putting no ranged buffer troops at all, which I think is not good. But if a mechanism that benefits 208 without the range buffer exists, please let me know in the comment. Furthermore, I don't want to get into the details, but a certain amount of ranged buffers may alter the mechanism so that 208 beats ranged wedge easily. I think a small number of you knows what I'm talking about. It's extremely advanced stuff, so forget it for now. Moving on, for your battalion, alternatively, you can send full tier 5 Inf and ask for 109 or 208, because your Inf won't receive any damage. This battalion setting is particularly common in intense War of Wonders, because rally leads are always sending 375k, and sustaining reds every time is just too much troop cost. Also, there might be a chance of getting sniped at after your first 208 hit, and preserving the inf does help in that situation. If you don't have tier 5s yet, just swap tier 5 for tier 4. Alright, I think I've taught a lot on 208, so hopefully this video has answered most of your questions on 208. Thanks a lot for watching and see you later.